chair now recognizes the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jordan from Ohio.
Thank you. Professor Gerhardt, it wasn't just a speech. He leveraged $1 billion of American tax money, and he did so at a time when our government was supportive of the prosecutor. Here's what our government said. The Assistant Secretary of State: "We have been impressed with the ambitious reform and anti-corruption agenda of your government," written to the Prosecutor General, who Joe Biden leverages our money to get fired. "The United States fully supports your efforts to fight corruption," she further wrote. The Interagency Policy Committee said this on October 1st, 2015. "The IPC recommends moving forward with a third loan guarantee to Ukraine in the near term." And even after Joe Biden gives the speech on December 9th, the European Commission said, their report said, the anti-corruption benchmark is deemed to have been achieved for Ukraine. But the most telling evidence is what his business partner said. Devin Archer, when we deposed him under oath just 2 months ago, said this. Here's the question. The request was help from the United States government to deal with the pressure they were under from their prosecutor. You know what Mr. Archer's response was? That's correct. Next question. What did Hunter Biden do after he was given that request? He called his dad. That's what we're investigating. That's one of the three things Professor Turley talked about, the influence peddling scheme. I want to go to those three things, Professor Turley. False statements, influence peddling scheme, and Joe Biden might have benefited. Let's do the third one first. Is a benefit to your family, can a benefit to your family be a benefit to you?
It is. There's been repeated statements that you need to show that President Biden accepted direct money in order for this to constitute a benefit, even under criminal cases that deal with bribery, extortion, the Hobbs Act. The courts actually have rejected that. They've said that money going to family members is in fact a benefit, and I don't really see any legal basis for that. Obviously, the strongest case is if you have a direct payment. But this idea that you can have millions going to a politician's family and that's not a benefit, I think is pretty fallacious.
Yeah, how about the false claims thing? In your written testimony, you said, to the extent that the president has used the White House, I think this is a little broader. To the extent the president used the White House staff to maintain false claims or resist disclosures, it can fit into the type of Nixonian abuse of power model. We know all kinds of false statements have been made by the White House. Joe Biden's made them. He said it was a lousy question when they asked him, have you ever been involved, talked to any one of your son's business partners? We know that was false. Ron Klain said, the president's confident his son didn't break the law. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, never spoke to his son about his overseas business dealings. What do you think about all those false statements from the White House in this abuse of power issue?
Well, the involvement of White House staff and executive branch staff has been really one of the tripwires that we saw in Nixon, to some extent even in Clinton. The degree to which you enlist support for a false narrative or to obstruct Congress can go into things like abuse of power. One of the things that I suggested is that if you look at past impeachment inquiries, and once again, this is an inquiry to find evidence, you're not voting on articles of impeachment, those allegations tend to develop last, and you look at what you have found.
Yeah. How about the Attorney General? I'm concerned about statements he made. March 1st, 2023, in front of the Senate, he was asked a question about Mr. Weiss's investigation. He said this in response to Senator Grassley. Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. Last week, the Attorney General told us that Weiss had the authority because I promised him he would have the authority if he asked it. That seems to me to be something different. It's what he said to the Senate, he's got full authority, no problem. Last week he told the House Judiciary Committee he had authority because I promised if he come talk to me, I would give him the authority that I already told the Senate he had. Do you see a concern there with false statements coming from the Biden Justice Department?
Well, there is a concern. You don't have to prejudge the evidence to say that obviously this is part of the inquiry. And what I don't understand is the opposition to the inquiry itself. It seems to me the test is, would the alleged conduct, if proven, establish impeachable offenses? And is there a credible basis for those allegations? I think the answer is clearly yes, that there is a basis to look at the president's conduct without prejudging whether that qualifies at the beginning of that inquiry as an article of impeachment.
And let's be clear, you don't need a full vote of the House to proceed in an impeachment inquiry phase of our constitutional duty to do oversight. In fact, the Democrats did it. 4 years ago, I was in an impeachment deposition run by Adam Schiff in the bunker in the basement of the Capitol, and I went to the floor. So I'm in an impeachment deposition, and I went to the floor to vote on opening an impeachment inquiry. They did the same darn thing because you have that authority as a Congress when the Speaker of the House makes that designation.
The Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, did in fact initiate the impeachment. In some cases, then you have a later vote. I've said in my testimony, I consider that the best practice to have a vote of the House. But the court that was referenced earlier looked at this and said that the Constitution does not require resolution. Actually said if you look at all the impeachments, often there wasn't a resolution. That doesn't mean it's not a good practice, but the Constitution itself does not require such a resolution.